I want to welcome you today to our Bible study. I'm Fred Davis, pastor of Mending Fences Cowboy Church in Lebanon, Tennessee. We're located on Highway 109, just south of Gallatin at the Starstruck Farm. It's a wonderful place. We would invite you to come on Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, as we fellowship together and as we worship the Lord Jesus Christ. I know that you would be blessed by coming. We have been going through the Old Testament book of Ecclesiastes. The author of this book is Solomon, who was the wisest and richest man that ever lived. So if anybody has wisdom, it should be Solomon. So he starts out on research to discover the meaning of life. That is what the book is all about. And so he looks at different situations and scenarios in life to discover its meaning. We are now in chapter 4, and we've been looking at verse number 7 at the advantages of companionship. There is an advantage to having friends, to having a helpmate, and help people that work with you in business and developing those relationships. So he says in verse 11, likewise, two people lying close together can keep each other warm. I remember years ago, a young couple who had gone into the Smoky Mountains at the height of the wintertime, and they got lost. They were gone for almost a week before they were found. And the nights became extremely cold. This was a young married couple. And they had to literally take off all their clothes, get in a sleeping bag to keep each other warm. But they made it. They got through. So Solomon knew exactly what he was talking about. That two people can help keep each other warm. But how can one be warm alone? They can't. If it were just one of those, they could have very easily died on this hiking trail where they could not find their way back. A person standing alone can be attacked and be defeated, but two can stand back to back and conquer the enemy. Three are even better, for a triple braided cord is not easily broken. And that is true. You take three cords and you plait those together, and that will become much stronger than just one cord by itself. He is applying this principle to mankind. If there are three that are working together and they're in harmony and they're being prepared for the battle, it's not easily broken. Then he says in verse 13, it is better to be poor but wise youth than an old and foolish king who refuses all advice. Listen to that again. It is better to be poor, but to be a wise young person, than old and foolish king who refuses all advice. Such a young person could rise from poverty and succeed. He might even become a king, though he has been in prison. But then everyone rushes to his side of yet another youth. So young people have the opportunity that is before us to rise up and to become strong with the support of other young people. And they can accomplish great things. Endless crowds stand around him. But then another generation grows up and rejects him too. So it is all meaningless. Here's the word that he uses, like chasing the wind. If a young person is defeated, but two other young people come around them to help them fight the battle, they can succeed. But if a new generation rises and they reject him too, it's all meaningless. And I do believe that in America today, that's the situation in which we find ourselves. Young people in our schools are not being taught the history of our nation. The Bible is not being taught. They have nothing on which to build a foundation. So generations can come and go, but it's all meaningless, and it's like chasing the wind. You know, if you're out in the wind and you see the wind blowing and you get a hold of it, what would you do with it? You couldn't do anything because it's foolish. Now, in chapter 5, beginning with verse 1, he talks about approaching God with care. As you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. That is an important principle. When we come together to worship the Lord, keep your ears open, but keep your mouth shut. The only way we can grow and learn is when we're not talking. But when we are willing to listen with our ears and take in what God is sharing with us through the man of God, we can become quite successful. It is evil to make mindless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises and don't be hasting in bringing matters before God. Think about what you're doing before you do it. After all, God is in heaven and you're here on the earth. So let your words be few. Why? So you can take in and learn and discover the purpose of life as others are sharing their wisdom and their knowledge. That is important. So, listen more than you talk. Too much activity gives you restless dreams. Too many words make you foolish. Have you noticed how easy it is to talk, to give your opinion, but you'll never grow, you'll never have more knowledge when we are imparting whatever we know with someone else. When you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through. When you tell God you're going to do something, listen, you better do it because you've made a promise to God. So when you make a promise of God, don't hesitate. Follow through. For God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all the promises that you make to him. That is vitally important. If you're going to discover the purpose of life, when you promise God something, do what you told him you're going to do. Because when a person makes a promise and they never follow through, that is a fool. Just don't do it. It is better to say nothing, to make a promise and not keep it. Don't let your mouth make you sin. When you tell God that you're going to do something and you do not do it, you've just sinned. Do you understand that principle? You have sinned. Don't let that happen. And don't defend yourself by telling the temple messenger that the promise you made was a mistake. When you promise God something, that's no mistake. You need to follow through and do exactly what you told God you were going to do. Because when you do not follow through on the promises that you make, it makes God angry when you do not follow through. And he might wipe out everything you've achieved. Everything is gone. Listen to this. Here's the observation of Solomon. Talk is cheap, like daydreams and other useless activities, but fear God instead. What does that mean? You're afraid of God? No. Respect. You should have such a respect for God that you're not going to tell him anything that you're not willing to follow through on. And if you promise God anything, whatever else you do in life, complete it. Make sure that you follow through on what you have promised God. If you're going to discover the meaning of life, you must keep your word. I hope that you'll think on these things, continue to study chapter 5, and I do hope that you'll have a blessed day today. Thank you for being with us.